Welcome everyone, Christine here with a very quick guide for the early game in Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl to get yourself going and have a great deal of success while playing the game. So first off, as you're finishing the tutorial area and you're planting your first 3 scanners, before you drop the third one, you should go over here in the south. So you would you would use the scanner around here. You go over here in this house, and you use the safe over here to drop a significant amount of equipment. You will not be able to keep everything from the tutorial, so you lose the better AK, you lose the AR-16, but crucially you can keep the ammo for the AR, for instance. Remember to unload the gun over there. You shouldn't necessarily bother with guns that are in the red because you can't sell them, but everything in yellow. And you do get a bunch of guns that are at full durability they can use or sell. So that is one of the first things to worry about over here when you're starting Stalker 2. As you progress through your game, there are a couple of things you will want to do in order to have an advantage. First off is getting armor and a helmet. There is a helmet over here west of Zalicia in this particular location in a duffel bag in the corner, and there is armor over here by the old mill. Or you can just do the main story about finding solder, which requires you to come here anyway, and you will get a set of armor, the exact same armor over here, the debut suit, before you can move out of the lesser zone. Having armor is a significant improvement in terms of your survivability, that and artifacts. There are not necessarily the best artifacts over here in the lesser zone, so until you can get out of the lesser zone, you won't necessarily have the best equipment, but getting a gas mask, getting armor is going to help you out quite a bit. Also, quite notably over here in this area, you can actually get a boomstick, or maybe even several boomsticks that are full durability. So what you do over here, just to showcase this, you come over here to the old mill, which you'll want to do anyway, and then you go to the mill itself, and over there will be a series of traps. They're basically boomsticks put as a trap, and you can pick these up and even use them. So over here, I'm not sure if yeah, so for instance, I went over here, and you can see that that's a boomstick. It's full on in terms of durability. Boomsticks are useful early on because they give you a better shot at dealing with mutants early on in your playthrough. So just pick up that one, at the very least the one that's rigged to a trap over there, and use it. There's also an artifact beneath all of this that you can also potentially pick up, but that is for the lesser zone. There's also a gun with one of the quests from the innkeeper in Zalicia that has you track down a stalker. There is a tower in this location that has an AK over there, and specifically it is this AKM-74S, Valak Luma's AKM-74. This is one of the best assault rifles you can get in the game, partly because, one, you will be able to get a lot of ammunition for it fairly easily. Like, you can use this one throughout the entire game until the very ending of the game. Sure, there are better guns that you get later on, but for an early game gun that is reliable, not the most expensive to repair, because expenses to repair by default, you know, that is an issue. Also, when you're leaving the lesser zone, you will get this explorer suit that's just lying in the sphere on your way out over there. Now, once you get out of the lesser zone, here's what you want to do. The game, like in this case, I decided to do the ward, so it's telling me go with to find Colonel Khrushchev. What I did instead is I headed over to Rostock. Now, one of the things you can do over here in Rostock is fight in the arena. The gear you have is irrelevant for the arena because your gear will be taken away and the game will give you a set of gear to use for the set of the arena. You can't complete the entire arena. It's not really that hard, but you can get a decent amount of money over here in the arena. So for instance, I'm at 17k right here, partly from various things I've picked up and sold in the zone, but also quite a decent amount from the arena. A lot of zone quests, early zone quests, are not necessarily going to give you a lot of money, but you can get a decent amount through the arena. And also, just because the zone is considered quote-unquote high level doesn't mean you can't handle it. Just kind of worth pointing it out. Besides, the game will push you to go around all of it. Now, once you're done with that quest in the arena in Rostock, and maybe a couple of other things you can do as well, you should head over here near the border wall between Pripyat and the rest of the zone. So Pripyat is over here. This is a wall that you can't pass until a certain point in the story, basically when you're getting to the end game. But you can get to the station on the wall that acts as a barrier. Over here in Yanov Station, as it's called, at the wall between the zone and Pripyat, you can do a couple of things. First off, you do have a guide to transport you back to Zalicia and other locations. But very, very importantly, you have a couple of merchants that will sell some very useful things. So for instance, this merchant will sell a Hilka detector, or if you're lucky, and I certainly was in this case, you can even get a bear detector. The bear detector is one of the best detectors you can get early on until you get to the Velis detector, which you can also purchase here, but you'll also get it, I think, at one point in the main story. So for instance, this detector will point you towards the direction of an anomaly. I actually made the mistake of using the Hilka a lot throughout the main game when I was doing my playthrough. But regardless, you can buy a detector with all that sweet money, and there's other things as well you can do over here in Yanov Station. The merchant, the arms merchant over here, Rek, will sell you a bunch of things. He may sell you at one point the Velis detector, but quite crucially, he might sell you a set of better armor than what you might get. Like, he might have mercenary armor. You could potentially get the SPA 14 shotgun, or a Sega 12, but costs. These things are very expensive, and I would not recommend getting these early on in your playthrough, because even if you purchase them, you're not going to be able to afford to repair it. Quite importantly, however, he sells a bunch of scopes they will not be able to acquire easily throughout the rest of the game. And also, pistol silencer, tactical pistol silencer, those kind of things. So he's selling a bunch of attachments that are very hard to come by in the rest of the game and the rest of the zone. Also, one of the reasons you would want to come over here to Yanov Station is you have Harpy. Now, Harpy is a tech that can handle pretty much any kind of equipment. There's a lot of technicians in this game that can handle higher level weapons and armor. She can handle pretty much everything. And so you want to get access to Yanov, because you will visit this location at one point in the main story, but by that point, it's like, it would have been nice to have these kind of, the detector, those attachments, the upgrade capability much earlier on in my campaign. So just worth pointing all that out. I believe on top of that there are some good artifacts, either one here or here, somewhere along these lines. Like, basically, there's some areas, I don't remember exactly where, but there is an artifact that gives you maximum radiation protection, which can be useful if you're, if you want to use artifacts in general. Because otherwise, if you don't have any kind of radiation protection on your self, it's going to be difficult using a lot of the artifacts in the game. And speaking about artifacts, we talked with this merchant right here. He's also selling some artifacts. Now, the kind of artifacts you'll get, like, it does feel like the kind of gear that merchants sell is kind of randomized, depends on story progression, all that kind of stuff. But still, getting a detector, you probably can't get the Velis detector early on. If you could, that would be amazing. But getting that kind of detector is not possible, but you can get a better detector, you can get attachments, you can get access to a technician, and it's not necessarily ridiculously expensive to travel. It's much more expensive to install upgrades or repair your equipment. Recommend mods for that purpose. So basically, there's a lot of running around. You can use a mod that basically allows you to cheat and get faster movement speed. Just follow the road, really, though, from Rostock. And then with all the money you picked up, you should be able to go back to the Sinnelleos and, you know, explore, do various things in the game, that kind of stuff. What do you want to do after this, though, is the question. Do you want to follow the main story? You could, but the main story is, regardless of who you side with, the main story is going to end up at the Slag Keep over here. You can go for that. But it's not necessarily the most rewarding from a loot perspective. There's some useful things, just keep in mind, though, not necessarily the most rewarding. Instead, I would recommend something else. And what I would recommend is coming over here to the Cordon area. First off, you will get access to Sidarovich, who is also a fairly solid merchant in the game, so various, you know, attachments or rather scopes that are available from him as well, quests. But the thing about the Cordon area is it's kind of like a higher level area, but you can basically pick up much more useful stuff. So you can get like a mercenary suit. I was able to find this in this area for a stash. I was able to get an M10 Cordon. I was able to pick up AKM-74s, which, you know, getting those early on is trickier. Like, these dropped from some enemies I fought. But the point is, there's a decent amount of money to be made over here. There's a decent amount of loot to be made over here to get here. And in particular, loot that wouldn't necessarily be very useful later on. The game will send you to this area at one point, but at that stage, it's kind of not as useful. But if you come over here, maybe even ignoring everything I just said about Rostock and Sinnelleos, if you literally come over here, you might benefit from doing so far more than if you were to go in other areas. So for instance, right there, I just picked up 10,000 cash, right? So I'm at 13,000 fairly early on. This is, by the way, unmodded, so I'm not using mods. Also, just one thing I like to point out, there is a good shotgun you can just pick up, or relatively good shotgun that you can pick up from the gas station that is in this location next to the chemical plant. So that is something, and it's just inside. You have to jump over a wall to get in there, but you can do so. And get access to this shotgun, get access to various pieces of gear that you can use. I would recommend not spending a lot of money on early game upgrades, because like just getting this gear to begin with will confer a fairly substantial advantage as is in the game. And yeah, you do have a guide available at the chemical plant, so you know, once you're done, once you feel comfortable dealing with Rostock, you can always go over there, you know, use the guide, go over there, do the main story, do the Slag Keep, all that kind of stuff. There's also the swamp area. There's some useful things in the swamp area, which you visit much later on in the game, but there's some side quests there, and some good guns as well. Like, basically, one of the things to be said is, like, you can put off doing the main story for quite a fair amount, and just build your character up. I'd also recommend to people, when you're looking to explore the world, one of the recommendations I would have to put to players is, you don't need more than, say, 5 pieces of food, for instance, because food is very plentiful. Like, 5 medkits. Bandages are fairly plentiful. I'd also recommend using bandages more than medkits, unless you... Like, medkits should be used in the heat of combat. Medkits should be used in the heat of combat. But you shouldn't necessarily use them to heal outside of combat. Like, use bandages, because you will find a lot more bandages than you have use for during just regular play, right? That would be my recommendation. Costin signing out. Stay tuned for more.